Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining me today to look at property taxes. So I know sometimes this becomes a confusing topic. We get our bill in the mail, we pay it, or our mortgage company pays it in escrows, but do we really understand the details behind it? So I really wanted to get into that today and share with you a little bit of information, also with some changes that have happened in the state of Texas in this last year. The legislature agreed to a big discount, and it's really if you have a homestead. So if it's your primary home and you have it homesteaded, which, as a reminder, you only have to ever homestead one time, and once you move in, you can submit your homestead exemption. Once you have that, they are now allowing for $100,000 discount on your value. They'll reduce the value by another 100,000 on what they tax you on. So this is a pretty big deal. I would say several years ago, it was 25,000, and it went up to 40,000 until last year. And this year they're signing it in. It just got signed in. It's $100,000. The voting still has to happen, but the likelihood it's going to go through is high. We still want to make sure we get out and vote to be safe. But the counties are all assessing everything with that $100,000 discount in there. So I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like and what that means. But when we're talking about homestead, I wanted to also mention, so you have it once and you get that discount. The other big discount you get when you have a homestead is you get something called a cap. Once you file it, you keep your homestead permanently until that is not your homestead anymore, until you move or sell the house. With that, the county can only assess you 10% increase each year. So if your value goes up more than 10%, they can't increase your taxes more than 10%. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as well, but that's why it's so critical to have a homestead exemption if it is your primary residence. So we want to keep that on there. I'm going to walk you through. So I have an example here. A lot of the counties, because of this new discount, I've seen so many of the counties right now haven't sent the bills out still, where last year they sent them out, most of them on the first week of the month. If you don't have your property tax bill in front of you, my suggestion is to get that bill and then watch this recording again. So I think it's going to be a lot easier to look at if you actually have it in front of you to really understand. But this should at least give you a guide. I'm going to share my screen now, and I wanted to kind of just show you a couple things. Let's see here. Okay. So this is I wanted to kind of just show you, this is the property tax cut I was referencing. That's out there right now. So they got passed, just needs to be voted on. One of the biggest cuts we've had in history, although we know also our values are continuing to go up. So we are being taxed on higher values, but now on a lower amount. So that's nice. With your property tax bill, I did want to also show you, let's see, I have it over here. Oh, I got to get out of this really quick. Let's see. Sorry about that. Share my screen again. Okay. So you can see this is an example of a tax bill. So it's just this happens to be Collin County. You can see it in here. I just took an example from a house that's listed right now. So I went to to Zillow, found a home, $449 is purchase price. Or the list price. I looked this specific home up in Texas. It is public information. So we can look up anyone's, so you can go and look up all of your own information. It is all public. So if you went into your county's CAD, so in this case, I went to Collin CAD. I typed in the address that I just found for that house that's listed. So you would just type in your street number, your address, you hit search, and it pulls up this information. It gives you, I just scroll down to the very bottom because this is what I wanted to focus on today is the values. So I'm going to show you right here. If you pull this up for yours, like I said, you go to collincad.org if you're in Collin, Tarrant County CAD, Tarrant CAD, or if you're in Tarrant County, Denton County, same thing. The things might look a little bit different, but for the most part, you should have somewhere you can type in your address and pull this up. This will give you the last several years of what your values are. You may have an extra page that comes in with your tax bill that shows you all of this information. I haven't receipted it in yet this year, so I'm not sure if they're adding that information in or not. But I wanted to show you, you can access it online. In this case, this specific home, over the last 5 years, we've seen some increases, but the last 2 have been quite hefty. And where I wanted to show you how that cap works, because it's pretty awesome. 3 years in 2021, this specific home valued at $266. Last year, the county assessed it at $370, but you can only have a 10% increase in value, what you're taxed on. So that's what this word assessed is for. So the appraised amount is what the home appraised for with the county, and the assessed value is what they're allowed to tax you on. So in this case, you could only be taxed on this $292 amount. And then this year, now another 10%, $321. What this number here is, it's called a cap loss, but this is an exemption. So you have your $100,000 exemption, but you also have this cap exemption. So we're going to see this number come up. So whatever your cap loss is, you'll see as an exemption on the numbers on your bill. But I want to explain it because it's a little hard to find. So in looking at this specific home, 468 is the appraised value, 321 is the assessed value, 146,273 is the cap exemption. Okay, so we're going to go back to that bill, and I'm going to walk you through everything, on this bill and kind of how it works. So we have 4 entities here. Every county and city and ISD is a little bit different. This one specifically in Plano has 4 entities. All of them will have an ISD, a city. Most of them have a county. Sometimes if it's out in the country, it's a little bit different. Sometimes if you're in some areas, you have something called a MUD or a PID. That's a different conversation that we can talk through one-on-one if you have questions about it. But in this case, there are 4 taxing entities, okay? So I'm going to first cover with you the ISD. Everybody has a school district that they're taxed on in Texas. And the way that this is calculated is a little bit easier than the rest of them. So I'm just going to show you that. Well, do you remember on that prior page, let's see right here, 321,928. So we go back here again. If you take $100,000 off of that 321, that's how you get what you're taxed on for the ISD, which the ISD is the biggest amount usually that we're paying in our property taxes. So in this specific one, this is Plano ISD. Every single person that has a home in Plano, Texas, or that's in Plano ISD will pay 1.077% taxes on whatever the assessed value is minus that homestead exemption. So in this case, it's 221. So now let's look at the other 3 entities. First, we're going to look at the county. So the county, the way this one is done is they take a 5% discount off of the appraised value. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my calculator because you can do the same thing with your taxes to kind of figure this out. But if we look here, we have 468,201. Now I know I told you that you're only taxed on the assessed value, but they're going to give you that cap discount here soon. So we're going to type in 468,201 times 0.95. Okay, it's a 5% discount. So they're taxing you on, actually, I'm going to do this different. I'm going to do it times 0.05. Oops. So I'm going to show you the actual exemption. So 468 right here times the 5% discount equals a discount of 23,410. But do you see that exemption here? We need to add in, going back here again, this cap loss, 146,273. So back over here, back to our calculator, we have the 5%. Now we're going to add in plus 146,273 There we go. So this is what the exemption amount is on this home. And the biggest piece of this exemption is that cap. So they give you a 5% discount and then the cap. Now the cap, or sorry, the 5%, it could be less than 5%. It's either 5,000 or 5%. Most homes are worth more than that in the assessed value. So, or the appraised value. So in this case, it's going to be the 5%. Now, Plano and Plano City and Collin College, most of the cities are all the same way, and same with the colleges, the way that they do the discount. So in this case, it's that same concept we just did, although instead of it being a 5% discount, it's a 20% discount. So we're going to take this 468,201 times 0.2, 2. So 93,640. Now we're going to add in that 146, that cap exemption we talked about, 146, 273, 239, 913. So that's the exemption amount. So if you look at everything on this bill, now you have your appraised value, your exemption, and the actual amount you're taxed on. So in this case, this plus this will always equal this amount. And that gets to this, what the total appraised value is. So in each of these entities, now we know our taxable value. And from there, we're going to take it times the tax rate that the county has announced. So these do change a little bit every year. It's however they're voted in, and they have to get approved if there are any changes to it. But everything in here, it goes off. So now we'll take the taxable value times the tax rate. You get your base tax. And that's how they come up with the actual tax amount that you have to pay for that year. So I hope this piece was helpful. Our tax bills get very convoluted and confusing, I think, and I've had so many questions. I even sometimes struggle with trying to calculate it all. But the main thing is they only come out once a year. So we can never really know what next year is going to look like. But we can forecast that. So when I'm talking to clients and looking at everything, and we're kind of looking at shopping for homes, I do try to forecast what we think is going to be. But one thing I did want to call out is the homestead. So if you sell your home and buy a new home, you do have to re-homestead. You don't have that anymore. And if there was a cap on it before, that cap does go away. So this cap only is going to be for you if you have consistently homesteaded and been in the home more than one full calendar year afterwards. So like I said, so I hope this was helpful. In April of every year in Texas is when the next year's value will come back out again. So you'll get something in the mail, and you did this last April, but you'll get something in the mail that will say, here's your new appraised value. At that point in time, that's when you can decide, how is this value looking compared to the market? Should I try to fight it? Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get them to bring the value down, depending on, some different things. And you can talk to myself or your realtor about this, because they have a lot of tricks that they can kind of help with as well. But in April, that's when you get that amount. Then in October is when you get this. So the next thing really that this can impact is going to be your escrows. And escrows do get a little bit trickier. But the main thing we want to look at for escrows is this number. We're going to take that number plus your last homeowner's insurance statement. We take those two things and we add them up. So in this case, let's say it's $39.76. Let's say your homeowner's insurance annual policy was $2,500. Now, so that's $64.76. We take that number, we divide all that total number by 12. And that should really be what your escrow amount is, what you're putting aside monthly to pay for your full year bill. It's never quite as simple as that, because as things go up or down, you might have a slight shortfall or overage in your escrow account. I will send you another video that I did on escrows that kind of helps maybe explain that a little bit better if you're trying to dig into that. But I'm always here for questions. If you wanted to shoot me over your tax bill and talk through what this looks like for next year. A lot of people, if you've homesteaded for a few years, might actually see a reduction in your taxes because of that $100,000. So that's a great thing right now, especially. But let me know if anyone has questions. Once you get your tax bill, look through everything, see if it all makes sense. And if you want to talk over any of it, feel free to reach out. I am here to help. Thanks so much.